Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to start looking at how to determine when reading the templates whether or not this is a favorite template. So you can mark favorites in the template section, and so now we're going to look at how we can specify only look at the ones that are marked as favorites. So this is a multi-step process. We're going to look at the first couple of steps today. The first step is figuring out where to find the favorites. Where are the favorites actually located on the system? So once we found it, then we have to know how to actually import these are the favorite templates, and then we will go through all templates to see if the template is in that favorites list. And so let's look at the first two steps in this tutorial, and then we'll look at the third step in the next one. So the first question is, where are the tutorials located? To locate that, we look through the Vegas files, and here is where we actually found the templates. When we go into our system, we look at the app data, roaming, Vegas, and then inside Vegas is a folder called render templates. And so when we open render templates, we find this favorites.settings. And so this is where the favorites are actually stored on your system. So all we have to do is look to the app data roaming, go into Vegas render templates, and we will find this favorites.settings. Now, if you don't have a favorites.settings, that means you haven't created any favorites yet. We're going to set the program up so that if there are no favorites, then we'll just put a message saying there are no favorites at this time. And then we will just exit the program. But for now, let's look and see what's actually inside this favorites.settings. Inside favorites.settings, we actually have a settings. It's an XML file with settings. This would be our root. And then inside the root is favorites. And then there are several item entries, one per favorite. So we want to go through and read all these separate items inside favorites. Remember, this is the root, then we have favorites, and then we have items. So if we look at our code, here's our main routine. We get our myVegas equals Vegas. Then I'm going to create a list called favorites, which is a new list of type string. So we want to import all of those items into this list. So the first thing we need to do is get where is the favorites file. So we're going to create a string called favorites file, and we're going to get that from system.environment.getFolderPath. And then we're going to get that from system.environment.specialfolder.application.data. So this will get us into our app data / roaming. Then we're going to add the director separator character. We want to go inside the Vegas folder. And then we're going to add another directory separator character and go inside render templates. And then another directory separator character and put in the file name, which is favorites.settings. So this will get us into our app data / roaming / Vegas / render templates / favorites.setting. Now I'm going to check to see if that file exists. So if not file exists, the favorites file, then we're going to just shoot up a message box saying there are no favorites saved, and we're going to return out of this program. Otherwise, this is the first method we're going to look at. We're going to actually look at two different methods here. And so here we're going to create an XML document, which is a new XML document. Then we're going to do a document.load from the favorites file. So that will create us an XML document that's loaded from favorites file. Then we're going to go from our XML document, root equals doc.document element. Remember, root is settings. So now we have our root, and then we're going to look inside favorites and look for items. So that's what we're going to be looking for, is favorites and item. So for each XML element child in root, If the child name is favorites, then I want to look at all the children in there. For each XML element child2 in child, if child2.name is item, which we know we're looking inside the root for favorites and item, then I'm going to get favorites.add, add this to the list, child2.enter text. So we want the actual information from this child2 that was of type item. And then it's going to go through each item in that list. Then when we're done, I'm going to go for each string, which I just called ST, in favorites. So let's see what we got. We're going to just do a messagebox.show ST. So this will show us what we actually received from that file. So now if we run that script, here is the first item that was in that file. If we pull up our file here and look at it, we can see that this first item here begins with 4C184FLE, just the same as what we have listed here, and ends with D62AA84FA963. So we got the first item here, and we know there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. So there's number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. So it did read all 5 items. This is certainly one method I've used many times to make sure that I'm getting the right items from the right section. But let's see if we can find a slightly easier way to go ahead and read all of the items without having to go through the multiple for each loops. In other words, I don't necessarily want to have to look to see if this is favorites. I know favorites is there. I don't want to necessarily have to look to see if this is an item. I know the items are there. Let's see if I can pull them all in at once. So let's take a look at this changing code. Now here's our code using this method. All of this remains exactly the same all the way down to loading the document from favorites file. Then I'm going to create me an XML node list called item nodes, and we're going to get that from doc.selectNodes, and we're going to look specifically for favorites/item. Then for each XML node in item nodes, we're going to add into favorites our node.enter text. And then once again, we're going to display all the information. So let's see how this works. Here we have our first item again, second, third, fourth, and fifth item, and it is finished. So here we've looked at a couple of ways that we can actually get the items into our list. And naturally the second one is quite a bit shorter than the first one. The first one is a little bit easier to read. And if you don't know exactly what the makeup of the file is and you need to be looking specifically for these particular items, then the first method might be the better method to go. But we need to just get the information into the list, and now that we've got the information to the list, now we need to go through all the templates to see if it is one of the favorites in our list that we just created. So we'll do that in the next tutorial. Like, subscribe, let me know what you'd like to see in the future, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.